Hello and welcome to another episode of Conversation Bytes. I'm your host, Olufsen, and today I'm pleased to have a wonderful guest, Karen Powell from ECOVACS Robotics. And you might know that robotic vacuums are the hot thing given the pandemic. And Karen joins us now from Sydney. Karen, welcome to Conversation Bytes.
Thank you so much for having me. It's wonderful to be here.
It is absolutely great to speak to you. But where did the journey begin for you in terms of business in Australia?
Well, I've been with ECOVACS Robotics for just over 3 years now, which has been fantastic. So I joined at the end of 2018. It started 15 years ago when I arrived in Sydney. I'd previously worked, I come from the UK. I grew up in the south coast of England in the UK. I've been working in London for Jabra, which is a Danish company, and I came and joined Sony Ericsson. Was very fortunate to look after a number of the telcos, being in the mobile phone industry and the retailers, so I really got a good grasp on the retail landscape and consumers and the entire market, and looking at the trends and technology divulging, and I moved from there really, and that's the journey from there. Saw me go to Jabra. I joined to head up the consumer division. I was fortunate enough to be asked to do that for Australia and New Zealand, so really got to grasp the New Zealand market as well. And from there went to Bang & Olufsen to do the B&O Play brand that had just launched for Australia and New Zealand, and I was fortunate enough to be approached to go on this wonderful journey with ECOVACS Robotics.
So, as a leader, what is there anything that happened in your growing up in the United Kingdom, coming through school, that might traits that you've brought into leadership in technology now that you might have picked up back at school? So just take us back to where you went to school, and maybe a teacher or someone around, maybe sport or something like that, influenced you way back then? Or not way back then, I should say, just a few years ago.
No, it is way back then, you're spot on.
No, just a few years ago.
We won't talk about the number of years, but let's just say it was a few decades ago. I grew up in the south coast of England, in a little seaside town called Littlehampton, and went to a primary school there in Rustington, and I think I was very fortunate.
Sounds wonderful.
Yeah, it's quite idyllic. A lot of people go down there to retire, or it's where they raise families and so on. So you've still got access to London and can get out and about. Yeah. But you're in a little bit of a bubble, which is really nice growing up, and you've got the beach and and nature around you as well. So it's not
what you guys call a beach.
Well, exactly, brown sky and brown sea and brown. But it's a metropolis. You know, when you don't know any better, and it's just a wonderful place. I remember being like tied up in a dinghy with my 3 cousins going round around a breakwater for hours, and just thinking that was brilliant entertainment, right?
Awesome.
But I think I was fortunate that my parents were from London and had moved down there. So even though I was in a small seaside town, which was a lovely way to grow up, I had lots of family and influences where we would go up to London quite a bit, and go to the museums and have that. So I wasn't scared of that, venturing outside of where I'd grown up, and saw the best of both worlds really. My school was one of those, it has a village fete, and it was all very idyllic, which was really nice. There was a particular teacher that took me under her wing, and she was always pushing the boundaries, particularly like she would say to me, you're not allowed to use the word nice, be more imaginative than that, you've got to, and I would just really looked up to her, and ended up being her bridesmaid actually, which was
wow.
Talk about being a nerd, right? And then when I went to my secondary school, it was massive, and there were people from all different walks of life there, so that was really good for me to see. Not everyone's fortunate, and that people do have challenges that they have to face, and we're getting a bit more street smart as well from that secondary school. But I think another thing that really influenced me as a child was, and I did all brownies and all of those, and dance and drama and things like kids do. But I got a job. I've always been fascinated in technology and medicine, and I got a job in a pharmacy from the moment I was allowed to work. I was working behind the counter and making up all the drugs and things. And the pharmacist there, it was his own little business. Sort of took me under his wing as well, and we'd sit there in the evenings when it wasn't busy, and he'd show me all the medicines, explain how they worked. I'd go with him to all people's homes and drop the medicines off and start advising all the customers around what they needed, and I really enjoyed that kind of consultative selling with something that helped people, but was really interesting, and it was always changing. There was new medicines and things coming, and I did that all the way up until, well, even when I went to university, which was 2 hours away, just north of London. I would come back in the holidays and I would still continue to work there, and just wonderful memories of those sorts of things. They had a really big impact on me, I think.
What did you do at university?
I did business studies. It was don't laugh, it was European business studies, which was a good idea at the time, even though UK included a gap year going to the south of France to work and study there as well, just so you got a bit more of a broader idea.
South of France?
Yeah, I had to work hard to pay for that, let me let me tell you.
Oh dear, the Bordeaux is pretty cheap there though, so it's not too bad.
Yeah, that was before the euro as well. I think it was something like, you could get them for like 70 centimes or something. Well,
the francs were better value back then. So what a terrific upbringing. That's fantastic, and it's amazing, Karen, how you remember those sorts of things. We had a techniques teacher, so metalwork, woodwork, Mr. Saint, but he was a stickler for grammar as well as a stickler for safety. So he was careful about getting a tie caught in a lathe and that sort of things. And also the fact you weren't allowed to say ruler when in fact it was a rule, because a ruler was in charge of a country, but a rule is something you measure with.
Wow.
And myself and a few of my mates, to this day, this is a long time ago, multiple decades ago, always say that. It's like, I don't know if we weren't actually scared of him, but
it's good to be a little bit scared. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
and I'm not allowed to use the word nice. I cannot say the word nice. Be more imaginative.
Oh, really? Yeah. So you mentioned that. So what was the story behind that?
So that was in my primary school when I was 8. The teacher, she was Miss Hodge, then she became Mrs. Powell, who I was a bridesmaid for, and she was just so passionate about English and broadening your vocabulary, and you should read more. And I was always more sort of science and maths based, but she really pushed that. And just everyone at school, whenever you handed anything in, she would just put red pen all over the word nice. And I had an auntie that used to write to me, and then she'd write, "Oh, bother Miss Hodge," because she'd written the word nice in the letter to me and had to cross it out. So those are the sorts of things you just remember along the way.
Yeah, it's funny. Those little traits, but I think it's all good as long as you pick up the traits that firstly are factual and important, and I think give you a little bit of discipline too. That it sort of made my grammar have more discipline through the years, not because of an English teacher, but because of a metalwork, woodwork teacher who was a stickler for it. So it was fascinating. Yeah, because I think I respected him more, I think, in the end.
Yeah, I think so. And something else I was just thinking about with growing up also was seeing how hard my dad worked. So my dad was a carpenter and he worked really, really hard.
Work ethic.
Yeah, it was, and my mum was a housewife and had part-time work as well, and she worked really hard at home. But my dad, he was always feeling grateful that you could believe he had his own home, and he used to say each week he'd be like, "Oh my goodness, please let me be able to pay my mortgage," and he would work extra on Saturdays and various other things. And so he gave us what he could, but we never had too much. And so having like the part-time job meant I had some pocket money, and I actually remember saving it in a little pot. And for my first week's salary was £10.40, and I thought I was the richest person on the planet. And I spent a couple of pounds, and I kept the rest and kept saving. So it taught me about sort of saving the value of money and never taking it for granted. And I think being a student in the UK when I was as well, and just being so skint that you used to get a jacket potato and cook it in the oven so you could get warm. And I've always, it's kind of good to have an appreciation of that money doesn't come easily, and
that's
good
fantastic.
To work hard.
And I think it should also mean that tech should be affordable for people. Because if only the elite or well-off get tech, it does leave society behind. So access to fast broadband, for even products like your own, I think is important for all walks of life.
Yeah, completely. And I also believe, I'm a big one because I can't sell something unless I believe in it. And I love technology, but I wouldn't be the first one to grasp it. And I feel like it's important that technology needs to be there to serve us. It should not leave us feeling frustrated or let down or feeling foolish because we can't figure out how to use it. It should be intuitive enough. So it needs to be affordable, but it also needs to be easy to set up and use and to serve people I'm a big believer of as well.
And now in Australia, you're considered a market leader. How did that happen so quickly from a product that may have been seen as a gimmick to being one of the most vital things to have in your arsenal of cleaning electronics now?
So we were very, very fortunate that the Australian consumers really love to grasp technology. So they are really, really quick to embrace, and we were able to sort of educate and talk around that. I think that, to your point, talking about them maybe being gimmicks, let's talk about maybe go back 3 years, 4 years ago.
Sure. That
was fairly true. So there were robotic vacuums that were available for consumers, and at best they would go around and randomly move on your floor, grab bits of dirt, then they would fling themselves down the stairs, maybe get stuck in your wardrobe, chew on your cables, and do all sorts of other things that they weren't meant to do. So people weren't too pleased, and they were paying quite a lot of money for those. So they got a bit of a bad rap. Now, what happened, and sometimes you can have that with early innovation and technologies, very fortunate that we came to the market and had a wonderful broad range of technology that we're able to bring in with the products. So with robotic vacuums, it's really important. You think about it, these products are there. When you're buying a robotic vacuum versus using traditional floor care, what we're trying to do is give people time back so they can do other things rather than having to actually undertake the chore of cleaning the floor. So to do that, the robot is meant to set and forget. To do that, it's going on your floor. There's going to be all sorts of obstacles that it might come across. There's cables, there's toys, there's things that's been strewn. They need to be smart enough to avoid those so it can actually get on with the job it's meant to do, which is to clean the floor. On top of that, with floors, people don't like vacuuming, but they dislike mopping floors even more so. So combining the ability to mop your floor and to vacuum at the same time was delivered with the right kind of technology. Now, in order to do that as well, you've got to understand the customer journey, the customer pain points. Do I want to have to empty my dustbin? Well, no. I'm asking a machine.
Certainly not.
Yeah, you're asking a machine to undertake the task of cleaning. So we've added in an auto empty station as well, so that when it goes back and returns to its little charging dock, it also sucks up the dirt from the dustbin and holds that up to a month's worth of dirt, so that you only are inconvenienced once a month with throwing that out.
So where is Ecovax based? It's obviously a Chinese company, and not only that, what is the sort of R&D? Are they fully focused on robot vacuum cleaners or robotics? Because some companies do robot vacuum cleaners, but it's just part of the business. Can you describe how big a part of the business for Ecovax?
So Ecovacs Robotics is indeed, its headquarters are based in Suzhou, which is just 2 hours out of Shanghai. And the headquarters have been there. That was established 23 years ago by Mr. Kwong, and it's now his son, David, who is the CEO of the company that's running. They are trading on the Shanghai Stock Exchange now, so they're a massive global company, but still have a sense of that kind of family-oriented business about them as well, which is really, really wonderful. So they've scaled up, but they're still very, very focused on the core ethics of the company when it was first developed. In terms of the breadth of it, it's described themselves as a home service robotics company. So yes, they do the robotic vacuums, but they also deliver other solutions that help in the home. They have the WinBots, which are window cleaning products. They have AtmoBot, which do air purification. They even have like a BennyBot, who is a robot that actually sort of helps in retail and as events. And then they're diversifying into some other areas as well. But at the core of the DNA, I would think that we're probably more famous for the D-Bots, which are the robotic vacuums. We've sold over 20 million of those worldwide now. So that is obviously a massively significant part of the business, and probably we're most well known for that in the Australia-New Zealand market. Now, in terms of the breadth of the company, so they design, manufacture and sell the products. So we look after everything end to end. So the product starts in-house at Ecovax. They do the design. We've got over 850 people that work in research and development at headquarters. We've got over 960 global and local patents. And a few years ago, they even set up as well an AI, Artificial Intelligence Institute, not far from the headquarters as well. So at the core of the DNA of the company is research and development and technology. Within that, they are then able to constantly keep innovating, coming up with new technologies. and there's laboratories. So as you walk around the headquarters there, it's a little bit like being in a James Bond movie. They're essentially pushing the boundaries of what they can do from a technology perspective, but equally, these products are going to people's homes. They've got to be safe. They've got to be really durable. You know, they've got to be able to stand being in humidity, bright sunlight for certain regions, drop from a certain height, and really put through their paces. So that's all done in-house as well. And that gives a real reassurance, and know that privacy and safety and all of those compliances on a global and local level are adhered to as well.
And just on that, that market in Australia, safety is important. But how have you been able to push through to be a market leader in such a short period of time? I know that there's a very thin personnel here in Australia, and there's probably a good reason for that, but just tell us about that. I mean, you obviously work really long hours and you don't have thousands of people to work with you. You've got a very slim component here in Australia, but there's an element of efficiency there that helps you as well, isn't there?
Yes, most definitely. I think I'm very fortunate that the previous 2 companies I was at as well, I was sort of working in a local market. There might be some people around you, but I was mostly leaning on headquarters, be that in an Asia-Pac region or in Denmark. And so you learn a certain style of communication, building up rapport with people, even though you can't be face-to-face with them and sat in an office. So it's about doing things, you know, using Zoom a long time before the pandemic hit, and you know, video conferencing and calling and WeChat and those type of elements. So I think the ability to grow, there's a number of components to that. I think one of them is building up that trust and rapport with your headquarters and leaning on all of their competencies. So I am so fortunate that I'm part of the Asia-Pac management team. So I'm able to work with, you know, on a daily basis with the product management, Asia-Pac marketing, supply chain, logistics, the customer service team, and you know, sort of all of the R&D and other elements as well. And they all understand the local market and the local requirements here. So there's elements, there's best practices from China and so on, but I see it's my responsibility is to ensure that they understand the local market and the complexities and the requirements here, so it can convey why we need certain price points, certain types of products will work, certain won't, the focus that we need from logistics and marketing, and keep that communication flow going 24/7, and leaning on them. They're all excellent at what they do, and they've really, we work as a team. We're very open and transparent with one another, and I feel very fortunate. So each person I feel that I'm dealing with probably does 10 people's jobs. And then equally on the ground, I've been fortunate to have wonderful partners. So we've got a wonderful marketing agency, PR agency, that do so much more than just the PR, and like an extension of our business here. And working with great partners, so having key distributors that get and understand your business and really become an extension of that brand as well, and they work hand in hand with myself, the team here, to then interface and work with the retailers to ensure that they deliver the outcomes for the retailers, e-tailers, and all of our partners, and then working with the consumers as well. And
Karen, just on that, do you have, even though that you're essentially here on the ground just with yourself and just a handful of people, but do you still have a deal of autonomy? Do you get to make the decisions, or do you have to keep checking with home base? Obviously, because of the way the structures work, you feel like you still have a lot of responsibility and freedom to make decisions here.
Yeah, that's a really good question. I feel like over time I've had more and more autonomy. So I wouldn't, there's certain elements that you can't just go out and make a decision around pricing or, you know, massive investments, because it's not actually my money.
Sure.
The money belongs to the company. But along the way, I can hand on heart say that I've been so fortunate that I feel like I'm listened to, as long as I have a good basis, you know, that we put a big good business case forward and show, you know, you've done your due diligence, whether it's you then working with your partner because you want to deliver a certain campaign, who's the target audience, what are the outcomes here, what's the forecast, you know, from a ROI perspective, does it make sense? Or if it's not an immediate ROI, but at some point in the future it's going to deliver this, able to talk through the outcomes as well, that the impact if we don't do this and the outcomes will be this, showing the competitor landscape, working through, looking at trends and what consumers want, I'm very, very fortunate that they do listen and then work through, and sometimes they themselves will then do a bit of a job internally to convey that to people higher up the food chain who wouldn't necessarily understand otherwise.
So how were you able to keep things firstly running during the pandemic, and secondly, I guess your work setup was pretty much pandemic proof anyway,
yeah.
because you were doing Zoom calls and whatever else before anyone else. I feel the same way. We're doing it right now. But in relation to keeping it going, but also knowing that there was huge demand for cleaning products or devices during the pandemic.
So I feel like probably very similar to so many people, to be so relatable to so many people. It wasn't a sort of, everything wasn't set right from the start. I think we all went through waves of different emotions and different concerns and different demands. And, you know, if we go back to last year when this first happened, I think everybody was very, very scared for their safety. They were very concerned for their families. That was first and foremost for their colleagues. And people concerned about job security, financials, and so on, including myself. And so we saw the sort of people almost like kind of freezing for a moment and just everything on pause. Then there was a sort of a period of time where, so some people were very, very unfortunate, you know, working in certain industries and so on, and this was constant for them. But other people started to realise that there was job security there, that they could work from home. They made some adjustments, got used to the homeschooling. And then they had different demands in their life. They were no longer going out to, say, restaurants. They couldn't book those wonderful trips. And it was a case of, how do I make this more bearable? How do I endure lockdown and having all these people that I love so much, but we weren't designed to be with them 24/7, and they are driving me crazy. And the floor is
constant. It can be a strain, yes.
Yeah. You know, the dog is just shedding everywhere every time I clean up.
The place gets dirty. Like really, like more people, it's going to get dirty.
Yeah, and you know, and it extended beyond that to a whole range of home appliances and so on. So these products became almost like an essential tool. People were looking for laptops and, you know, all these other, you know, webcams or things because I had to set them up for offices at home and so on. But then they were also thinking about the day-to-day comforts and, you know, making the coffee and doing the things. And this is where we saw the floor care, particularly robotic vacuums, really taking off. It was that, but we'd also been fortunate that prior to this, we'd worked very, very hard to establish the brand in Australia. We'd got on board some really wonderful partners who were already recognising that there was that the trajectory was almost like vertical in terms of the growth, and had backed and given some really good forecasts on products as well. We were able to deliver on that because we're fortunate we managed the sort of like the manufacturing end to end as well as the research and design. And we were able to supply. And so consumers started, they jumped online, we saw that sort of growth as well. And it just continued to go from there. And, you know, there was ebbs and flows and things, but overall it just went up and up and up. And then people got to understand the benefits, and then they were sharing it. It's been interesting how we do all the marketing, and we push and educate, and so do our retailers, and, you know, and our wonderful PR agency. But this type of a product takes on a life of its own. There's two things. One is that the D-bots, or the robotic vacuums, super cute. They move around in quite a nice way, almost as if they're like another.
People become attached to them. There's no doubt, because they have sort of animal-like movements, and if they talk to you, they even enhances it. Occasionally, if they get stuck, you feel sorry for them. But you're right. Yeah, people, and I guess that's not lost on you guys either. I mean, if you make it cute as well as doing its job, you sort of get attached to it, don't you?
Yeah, there's, you know, because it's down on the floor, it's moving around, and it talks to you unless you turn it off. You know, it's letting you know it's cleaning, it's doing something, or it sends you a little, if it does get stuck somewhere, which is very rare, but maybe someone shut the door, get a little SOS or whatever, and go and get it. And this is quite a nice humanistic quality it has about it. And the other thing is as well is that I think people really can't believe that, you know, it maps your home, it's mopping, it's saving you so much time. It's so excited that they love sharing about that on social media. So you know, it's gone kind of viral, the story about it, and they just go, OMG, or, you know, public service announcement, this thing mops. And you sort of think, gosh, these have been out for a while and they've mopped. but maybe we forgot to talk about it and tell people. And so that's been really interesting as well. And there's never been more of a time that people have got their ears pricked up than when they're there and they've got so many challenges on their plates. And this is, they might have been teetering around the idea of, shall I or shan't I? Maybe I'll just wait. And they're like, you know what? I deserve this and I need it.
And how good are they? Because for a long time, I think in the recent couple of years, we thought, well, you supplement your main cleaner. I did a couple of reviews on the first vacuum, the battery-powered Dyson stick, and I used to hate getting, caught up with cables and that sort of stuff, with dusty sort of emptying of bags and those. I just hate it. I sort of thought like James Dyson, this needed to change. And those first robot vacuum, or the stick vacuum cleaners, are so good that it changed my mind about doing vacuum fast with a powerful device, and also emptying it. It was the other thing we didn't, because in Australia, as you know, there's a massive asthma account in terms of people in Australia. It's huge, and this dust doesn't help. So the problem with the robot vacuum cleaners, though, Karen, was that, but you can't really rely on them to do the heavy load. Is that changing now? Is it a case where you could get one and do most of the vacuum in your house, and not even use it as a supplementary device, but use it as a key device? Are we getting closer to that, or do some of the devices actually serve that role?
Yeah, I can say hand on heart, and I understand the question that you're raising, because this may be people's preconceived idea, but they truly now are a replacement. There is no need anymore to need to vacuum or mop. It's not a supplementary to. So I'll talk about our current flagship product, for example, the Gbot T9 Plus, purely because it's packed with so many features and it can explain why what I'm saying is true. One of the things is, as much as we say there's so many technologies and smarts around it, because it's all about the cleaning efficiency, but of course, a robotic vacuum needs to suck very hard. Yes. And it got a 3000 PA suction, which is the highest in the market. So by that, the strength of that vacuuming, as it's going round and it's systematically cleaning the carpet, vacuuming, it actually looks like when you've gone with a traditional robotic vacuum, it kind of leaves your carpet looking groomed, and you have exactly the same effect. So you come home and you open the door, and it looks like someone has been to your home, a magical fairy has come round and actually vacuumed the floor, which is spectacular. It's got the ability to go up and down the steps, because it's got that mobility of 20 mils. Within it, it's got the smart, so it has what we call the True Detect 3D. So it's able to go around and actually identify those objects, small, medium or large objects, so it can make decisions around, well, that's a very small object like a piece of Lego. I'm going to go up, but I'm not going to go too close to it because I don't want to suck it up either, but I want to go as close as I can to clean around as much as I possibly can. It gets to a piece of furniture, I can go up closer and suck harder to that. It gets to, say, you've got some low-lying elements like you've got under beds and various other things, some places that you haven't explored in your home for years or dared to venture to.
Yes, you don't want to go into.
It's smart enough, with that technology to be able to go, I could get under there and I'm not going to get stuck, and I'm going to give it a good clean. So it will go through and do that. You don't have to worry about it getting stuck. And we're talking as well about it mapping your home. So why is that important? Mapping your home means that you are then able to set up customization, label the rooms. It can do that and create 3D maps as well. So the first time you use it, it will go and create this map of your home. The next time it goes, it knows your home, so it can do that quicker. So it's cleaning your floor more quickly as well. But you might say,
does that mean, Karen, that you can set up areas where you don't want to go via the map rather than using like an infrared blocking system?
Yes, spot on. So after that map's created, you might go in and say, there's certain rooms in your home where you go, it looks like a war zone, there is no way that I want it to even go in there and try and clean. So you can set up a barrier there, or you might have an indoor-outdoor area and you just don't want it to go out to that area there, so you can kind of create these areas too. Equally, you might just go, do you know what, there's just this rug that's constantly, I have a dog, I have a King Charles Spaniel, and she's always molting. I love her dearly, but she molts. And I've got this black rug that I love equally. And I'm like, the two shouldn't really coexist, but they do. So as much as my robotic, my T9 Plus will go around and clean the schedule every single day, if she's been rolling around on that rug, I can't bear it. So I can just create, quickly click on and send it to that, to then go and just blitz that part itself.
Wow.
And in terms of the mopping as well, to mention, so it goes around and vacuuming. If you fill the tank you just put some cold water into the little water tank and clip on the mop, which is, it's very, very simple and easy to do. It then goes into mopping mode and it will go around and mop the floor. But rather than just going around, it's got a computerized system and it just puts enough water through to clean the floor, and that can pick up 99% of bacteria. But as it's doing that as well, it's oscillating. So it's actually sort of like rubbing your floor. So you can have, traditionally some people may say, well, it's okay, but I've got bits of stains or coffee or oil, and I've got different types of floor covering. Even with the microfiber mopping pad that goes on it, it will go through, it will clean and lift off the debris, take away oils and stains, and give that perfect finish as it's gone past as well. So you can walk on it pretty much straight after it's gone past and done that. Peel off the microfiber cloth, throw that away, and you are done as well. And like I mentioned, within it, it's got sort of carpet detection, so you don't need to worry. It's mopping, it gets to a rug, it knows not to go on it, avoids the carpet and does those hard floor areas.
See, that's ideal. That's ideal, isn't it? Because having to tell it what to do is a big problem. So the next bit to follow up on that is, I think the game-changing bit is the auto emptying, because the big problem for me was, turning them over, and then I test a lot of different ones. So it was always different opening it up, and then it sort of defeats the purpose when you bring the bin out and then stuff goes everywhere. It's really annoying. But I've tried once you've tried the auto emptying, it changes your life, because you just don't have to do anything. It just does it all, and you take the bag away and you don't deal with the dust, the nasty stuff. That's
exactly right. And it is a game changer. I think it's so true. You don't know how much you need it until you then have it, and then so I'm testing. I always constantly have them at different versions running, and I have one upstairs with the auto empty station, one downstairs without, and it's such an inconvenience to me now downstairs to then have to, oh my goodness, I've got to bend down, take the little bin out, take it to the rubbish bin, open it up, which is super easy to do, drop that out after one or two cleans. With the auto empty station, it goes back to its charging dock, and then you hear this reassuring whoosh as it's taking it out, putting it into a bag which is biodegradable, goes in there, and we approximate that you would then only, in a medium-sized house, if it was cleaning once a day and you had a medium amount of dirt in your home, it would be only literally once a month that you would then have to go in and pop the lid open, slide it out. None of the dirt or debris comes out, because it sort of seals itself. You drop it in the bin, put the new one in, and that's it. So that's probably as much manual intervention as you have to have with your cleaning along the way. And so that was a real game changer, and I think that has been particularly interesting. So we've obviously had that for a little while. When we first launched it, it was available as an attachment that you would buy to go with the product, and over 50 to 70% of those units that we were selling, we were getting the auto empty station attached with. So made a decision with the new flagship product that we launched that it would come with that auto empty station hard bundled in, and the benefit is the consumer makes a bit of a saving when they're getting it as a whole package, and it has been extraordinarily successful for us. It's also we put within it, we were the industry first to have an air freshener capsule inside, so as it goes around and vacuums your home as well, it can release a lovely bluebell, or there's a couple of other fragrances as well. If you don't want that, you don't have to have that activated, but that's an option that's also, it's pushing the boundaries and offering consumers that while it's going around and cleaning your home, why not freshen it as well? And
So speaking of pushing the boundaries, how much better can they get? And I know that security cameras have been used on several devices.
So you touched on before about the security elements. So what happened there was we had another product, also another flagship product, which was the Tier Ivy, that has the artificial intelligence and visual interpretation, which is about it going around not just avoiding the objects, but recognising what they are. And then you could, it will let you know and put them on the map, and then you could come home and go, okay, it avoided these areas. Now I'm going to go and pick those items up, and I'm going to send it back to clean those areas that it had to miss because they were left. And what we found as a byproduct of that was this camera is super smart. We could switch it out of cleaning mode and put it into video manager if people want, and they're really paying for that technology within the product. Why not, if they wish to, switch it on to be a little bit of a camera, so it can go around and in real time video stream your home And if you wanted to patrol a certain area and have a look, check if you've left the door open or something like that, it can do so. That's purely for your own knowledge and information. You don't have to have that activated. And if you do, if it saves a picture or something, it goes on a server. If you delete the photo from your phone, it's gone from the server within 10 minutes. So we don't put that into all products because we don't believe everyone wants that, and then they'd be paying for a technology that they don't need. But it's a way of trying to be smart and utilising the technology as broad as we can. And then sort of addressing your other question, really talking about what's in the future and what's next. I think we're constantly pushing the boundaries. We talk about this being quite similar to looking to driverless cars and those types of technologies. So we need to challenge ourselves. People who are using the product, pressing a button or using a remote control, then they started using their smartphone as the way of commanding the product. What about your voice? What are other ways? We know customers are interested in really not even having to maybe interact with their phone in some ways to get the products to do things. So that's something we're looking at. This whole driverless car technology and improving the navigation as well is something that's really important. And of course, we've got to keep pushing the boundaries in terms of the way that we can clean, making it as hands-off, which is what we want to deliver, as hands-off as possible. What do we do next? How do we improve the mopping? So there's going to be some exciting developments coming within that. And something else to mention is, these products you can see them. People traditionally, when you had an old broom or mop or vacuum, you put it in a cupboard, right? And people quite like having the cupboards to hide them into. These products, if you're using them in the way that they were designed, which is to be out and doing the hard work while you're...
So they've got to look good too.
Exactly, yep. As
They've got to look good.
Yeah, we've won some design awards for our products, but we are really, really pushing the boundaries in terms of the way they look visually in people's homes as well.
But what happens when things go wrong? Customer service, I had an incident of customer service the other day where I thought, it was an Australian company and they had local people talking to me, and it was just so frustrating. It didn't matter that they were local. So I don't have a problem where the customer service is, as long as it's good customer service and the first person you speak to on the phone can make a decision about the product, which may have a fault with it. It might be something else about, a warranty or a charge or something like that. How important is customer service to you and the company to make sure you get that right? Because I would believe that it is probably, after the initial purchase, the single most important thing is what people think of your customer service.
Yeah. No, you're spot on. Of course, it's all part of the brand, isn't it? You're spending so much money on presenting the brand in a certain way, messaging and so on, and your customer is your everything. And the journey that they have with you, you want it to be, every touch point to be memorable and favourable and to bring a smile to their face. They're not meant to be, they're meant to be designed to save you time and to make everything effortless. And that should be the same with the customer service. I think the customer service is multifaceted because you've got the journey within the retailer. If you've purchased it from somewhere, people quite often like to go back to their retailer, so we like to enable them to be able to deliver the right outcomes, make sure that they're trained and educated in the first place, that they sold the product correctly. There's different customer segments with different needs and price points and budgets and requirements. You've got to make sure that you're selling the right solution in the first place, so your point of sale, the way that you train the staff and everything is really important. What you promise on all your marketing materials and the way that you deliver that is also, I think, part of the customer journey as well. And then there's, of course, when they take it home and the unboxing, that excitement that you're setting your robot up for the first time. And we know that it can be. We try to make sure that the unboxing is a pleasant experience, that you've got a quick start guide, because no one really wants to read a really lengthy manual. We want them to be as intuitive as possible. And
a guide, Karen, a guide of a good product is that you never have to read the manual. And
precisely.
I usually chuck it out.
But exactly. But who's got the time or the want or the, these technology is meant to serve us. With it, technology is meant to be the slave.
It's like reading a Bueller. No one reads them either.
So people will sometimes, and they're connecting to the Wi-Fi. This might be the first time that they've had that journey of connecting a smart device up to their home.
Can I say, just on that, that's improved a lot. When Ecovacs first started, I thought the Wi-Fi experience was quite ordinary, but it's so much better now. And I think that's a great idea that the company's improved, and it has amazingly. It is like chalk and cheese when I first used it.
I'm so glad you say that. And you know, part of that is actually knowing and understanding the local market rather than just manufacturing the products overseas and then sending them to a distributor and hoping, you know, that your marketing will work. If you've got eyes and ears on the ground, you understand that, like the configurations of people's homes, the size, the scales, the types of Wi-Fi. What are the sort of stumbling blocks that consumers might come across? You know, like we say, downloading the app. They need to download an app and set that up, and then, you know, if they're, you know, so we're there on customer service, so people contact us through the app. They can click through, they can send an email or they can call. We like to serve people the way that they like to communicate as well, and we've got there that, you know, 7 days a week we have specialists that are there that will answer customers' queries, help them set up and that side of things. And then there's a whole range of troubleshooting guides in case they come across an issue as well. And if, you know, if unfortunately something doesn't work, they can return it from where they purchased it, or we're able to offer repair service as well with our wonderful agents who are in Sydney and Melbourne that can do the repairs as well. So, you know, nothing's perfect. Sometimes, you know, customers are disappointed, get frustrations, but, you know, there's nowhere for us to hide. You know, people will go onto social media or product review, or, you know, they will express their concerns, and it gets filtered through to me one way or another, or the team, and we always make sure that people's concerns are addressed. So I'm very proud of the way that our customer service has evolved, and I think it's not perfect, but I think it's we do a really, overall, I think most people say it's great. And, you know, there's not many companies now where you can just ring and call and actually speak to someone directly on the phone. So I think that's a really important
absolutely.
Service that we should continue to offer.
That's a great point. It's so hard to reach someone on the phone. Some companies don't even have a phone number, Karen, so congratulations on that.
Long may that last, right?
It's very, very hard. Karen Powell from Ecovax, I really appreciate your time. You've done a wonderful job there in just a few short years, particularly through the pandemic, which has been 2 of them. It's been extraordinary. I do wish you the very best in 2022. Just make sure you keep the grammar under control, and you know what word. I'm not going to use the word myself now. It's
been very nice speaking to you.
You're in trouble now.
Yeah, no, exactly. Thank you so much.
Karen, thank you. Have a great Christmas and a very successful 2022.
Thank you, and likewise the same to you. Thank you very much for having me.
There she's Karen Powell from Ecovax joining us. We'll be back another 2 weeks with another episode of Conversation Bytes. Don't forget you can watch us in 4K, or you can also download us as a podcast on any of your favourite podcatchers. We'll see you next time on Conversation Bytes.